Hi, I'm Sally and I'm going to show you how to make fondant fancies. The first thing I've done is preheated the oven to 180 degrees C, 160 degrees if you have a fan oven, or gas mark 4. Okay, to get started, I've got 225 grams of unsalted butter, so I'm going to pop that in the bowl first of all. And then adding to that, I've got 225 grams of golden caster sugar. Now this I'm going to mix up with an electric whisk so that I get it really nice and light and fluffy. Once it's nice and softened like this, I'm going to then add 1 egg at a time and then carry on beating it up. Keep turning the bowl to make sure that you get all the mixture from around the side. And then the final 2 eggs. Okay, now I'm going to add in the 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. 1, 2. Mix that again. Now that's nice and light, I can see now, so I'm going to just gently add the flour and use a large metal spoon to fold it in. We want to keep as much of the air in the mixture as possible here. Don't overmix it at this stage. And then what we need to do is pour that mixture into a prepared baking tray. I've greased the bottom of it and then I just simply put a square of baking paper on the top. Then simply spoon your mixture on there. And we're going to level it out just a little bit. And then this is going to go into the preheated oven for between 45 and 50 minutes until it's nice and golden brown. And if you're not entirely sure, you can just get a skewer and enter it into the middle of the cake, and if it comes out clean, then it's cooked. Now over here, I've got another one that I've already cooked and I've already cooled it, so this is ready for the next stage. What we're going to do with this now is just brush it with the apricot jam. Now this I've just warmed a little bit first of all, which makes it easier to paint on. And just using a pastry brush, paint all over, and especially the edges, because this is going to help the marzipan stick. Now, very conveniently for me, I managed to find some ready rolled marzipan. If you've got your marzipan in a block, very simply, just dust a little icing sugar down and use a rolling pin, a little bit of icing sugar on there, and then roll it out. It needs to be about 3 millimeters thick. And then very simply, I'm going to pop the marzipan on the top of the cake. Carefully feel where the edge of the cake is, and you're going to trim it, because these are going to be the edges of your fondant fancies. Now I'm going to pop this in the freezer for 10 minutes, and that's going to prepare it for the next stage. Okay, so now for the buttercream icing. I'm going to use a machine for this. You can do it by hand, of course. I've got 250 grams of softened unsalted butter. Pop that in. And I've got 300 grams of icing sugar. I've got a great tip for you here. When you're using an electric mixer to make the icing, always cover it over with a clean tea towel, because it stops the icing sugar just going everywhere and all over your kitchen. I can put this on nice and low, and that'll mix up beautifully. Oh yes, that's perfect. So all I have to do now is pop in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, give that a mix, and we're ready for the next stage. Okay, so now I'm going to pop this into a piping bag. And this is to make the little blobs of buttercream on top of the fancies. And the next thing we need to do is cut this up. I'm just going to take it off the wire rack. Now you need a good sharp knife, and you can use a ruler to help you with this, but you're going to cut 3.5 centimetres across, which I know is about that. And then I'm going to cut another one, 3.5 centimetres again. So I've cut 2 strips there. I'm going to turn these around and cut them into perfect squares. Because they've been in the freezer for 10 minutes, they're really easy to cut. What you now need to do is take your icing bag and you're just going to put 1 blob on the top of each of the fancies. Now work as quickly as you can because you don't want to melt the butter icing with the heat of your hand. You're just doing 1 quick little blob on the top of each of these cakes. As simple as that. Flatten them down a little bit like this with your finger. Okay, now I need to put a little bit of the buttercream around the outside. So I find it easier to pick the fancy up and smooth some buttercream around the edge as smooth as you can. So that one's done perfectly. Obviously you're going to cut all the cake up into the squares and do the same thing with the blob of icing and the buttercream around the outside. Then you're going to pop those onto a tray and you can put those in the fridge for at least an hour, but preferably overnight. So they're perfectly chilled, and now I have to make the fondant icing. So I've got a 500-gram blob which I've just chopped up, and I'm now going to pop this into the mixer. So I just pop about a tablespoon of water in to start with. So you can see that's a really nice pouring, dripping consistency. Okay, now what we're going to do is mix this icing in with the different colours. And this fondant icing, you'll see, is perfect pouring consistency. You don't want to waste any. So I've got 3 lots of food colour here, red, yellow and green, and I'm just going to pop a couple of drops into each bowl and then mix them up. Let's start with the red. And now we just need to stir it in. Okay, so now for the fun bit. I'm going to start by icing one with the pink icing. So get one of your Fondant Fancies, skewer it with a fork, and then quite quickly cover it with the icing, twiddling your fork around as you go to make sure all the sides get covered. And then I'm going to pop that on a rack above a tray just so that it can set. So the very final thing to do is drizzle them with some melted dark chocolate. I've melted this actually in the microwave, just a little bit at a time, about 30 seconds, and then checked it each time, and it's perfect for this. Hold it quite high up, get it running nice, and just drizzle it over the top. And then I'm going to pop these on the plate with the others and leave these to properly set for a couple of hours before I serve them up. You could always put them in a gorgeous box and give them as a present. So there we have it, Fondant Fancies. They really are worth the trouble.